Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Rates and Lanes podcast. I am your host, Rico Muhammad. That handsome fellow next to me, that's my good friend and co-host, Chuck Snow. And this is the Rates and Lanes podcast. We ride once again for another week. I think we're in week 29 out of 52 for the year. So it is going right on by.
Yeah.
Before we get into a little bit of housekeeping, if you guys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, would do us a huge favor, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. It helps us get this video and all of our uploads out to a broader audience. It helps us out tremendously. We don't charge you anything for it. YouTube doesn't charge you anything for it. It's completely free. So if you don't mind, help us out. Give us a like, give us a share, comment. We appreciate it all, whether good or bad. And with that being said, Chuck, how are you?
We're doing well. You know, Rico, today is my 73rd birthday.
Happy birthday.
Well, thank you very much. And I started in 73rd, and I started in the trucking business. Well, actually, it was my gateway to the trucking business on this date in 1974, which is a long time ago.
Man, that's 1 year before I was born.
and I don't want to go. This is a hilarious story, and one day when we have more time, I will tell it. But my best friend rented me a tractor, a Ford cab over to W model, which is the same model as what they used in the Blue Mule, if anybody knows that movie. Very ubiquitous cab over sleeper at the time with a 318 diesel, and I had no clue how to drive it. And we rented it and went bobtailing for a day. And that was my introduction into trucking. And I could gear it up okay, but I couldn't gear down worth a darn. And I will just leave it with this. We didn't smash the truck up or do any damage to the body, but by the time I returned that truck to Hertz at 10 o'clock that night, you could smell clutch for miles away. And the next day I was doing a delivery not far, like probably a block and a half away from the Hertz dealer. And all I could smell was that clutch.
God almighty.
It was pretty funny. So one day we're going to dedicate a show for my introduction into trucking, and it will be funnier than anything anybody ever did at a comedy show.
Man.
It's all true.
I definitely want to hear that tale.
Oh, they're good.
Well, getting into this week, ladies and gentlemen, we are heading in, I guess you could say, I don't know, it's kind of a mixed emotions feeling, but diesel pricing is up by 21 cents this week. So it's starting to creep back up on the diesel side. So make sure that you are pricing yourself accordingly and fighting for every nickel, dime, and penny that you can, because as we start to go into every segment, just to go ahead and let the cat out of the bag, every segment is down this week across the board. So we have some capacity coming back into the marketplace, and it is definitely affecting the rates. And of course, July seems to, I don't know why, but it seems like after 4th of July, historically, the market kind of cools off for a little bit, and then it kind of picks back up again next month. So for the month of July, you kind of getting a little bit of a lull state, unless you happen to be in one of the hot pockets, in which we'll talk about those as we go a little further. Anything you want to add on diesel fuel?
Yeah, Rico, the automotive industry historically shuts down around the 4th of July for that week. And then some of their suppliers, given the business environment today, are taking longer. They're shutting down as well, and they're retooling. They're doing all sorts of things. They're cleaning up their plant. They're getting new machinery, all of it. So that goes on quite often in July. And plus, people have their holidays. So
the retooling The retooling is part of, I guess, when they start the new model year for the next year.
Yeah, I'm sure that's a big part of it. And I remember once, around the 5th of July, going over a high speed scale in Michigan. There wasn't another truck on 75 just outside Detroit, and I just creeped over the plate, and because I'd never seen a high speed scale there. And the trooper brought me in. He says, "Why are you driving 5 miles an hour?" It said 30. And I said, "Didn't look right." And he said, "Well, it's a good thing these weren't normal times, or you would have had the trucks backed up all the way to the Kentucky border." Uh, so, you know what? I did. There wasn't another truck on the road because of the retooling. That's a automotive route. So this is to be expected this time of year. I wouldn't read too much into it.
So we're gonna jump over into the dry van segment. We're showing that the average rate per mile for dry vans is at 244 per mile. Now keep in mind that these rates that we are sharing with you do not include the fuel surcharge. So make sure your mileage, of course, may vary depending upon where you are and how your negotiating skills are. So for the seasonal peak is actually on a downward trend. Week over week, we are down by 6 cents. We are still up 48% year over year. And the average load to truck ratio for dry vans is sitting at about 10 loads to truck ratio. Bellwether markets are sitting at 293. Of course, that's a lot higher, but it's still 12 cents down from the peak. Rates are cooling as capacity returns, defend margins, and avoid weak repositioning freight. So make sure that if you staying in a good market, so to speak, make sure that and if you're going to take something that's going to a difficult market, make sure that you are pricing yourself accordingly.
And one thing I want to add here, Rico, your price is only the price you paid for the fuel you just bought or you're about to buy, which you know the price. So if you're going from let's just say Atlanta to Charlotte, you're fine. You don't have to worry about it. You know that you paid $4.72 a gallon. But if you're taking a load from Atlanta all the way to California, you have no idea how much fuel is going to be tomorrow or the next day. So add a little extra in there. Make sure you're going to cover your downside or your potential downside.
Absolutely. Jumping over into flatbeds. Let's get out of the way of the graphic there. Let's get on the side here. So for flatbeds, we are sitting at $2.95 per mile on average. Once again, fuel surcharge is not included in that rate. Still above the 2021 record. We are down by 5 cents week over week. We are up by 44% year over year. The load to truck ratio has slightly ticked down to about 44 loads to truck ratio for flatbeds. In the industrial corridor, flatbeds is still sitting at $3.50 per mile. That's down by about 10 cents. Capacity rebounded 8%. The price active construction lanes, you still are able to get a little bit more of a margin in those particular lanes. That's where the industrial corridor number kind of jumps in at. But flatbeds is still knocking the cover off the ball, so to speak, at the plate. And moving on over, jumping into the reefer portion of the report. Reefers are sitting at $2.80 per mile on average. We are down 3 cents week over week from the post-July 4th cool down. We're still up 43% year over year. Load to truck ratios for reefers are sitting at 19.74, so we're almost at 20 loads per truck. Produce hubs, that rate per mile jumps up significantly, showing about $4.16 per mile on average. That's up by 6 cents. So California and Yakima shifted to slight truck shortages. Northeastbound produce lanes gained leverage. So those are your hot signals if you are out west or in Salinas or California in Yakima Valley. The world is your oyster right now if you are a reefer hauler.
That's
Always, always a good sign.
yeah, it is. Those areas are hot right now.
And so for a roundup of the total market, just to kind of put a bow on everything, rates are cooling down, levels remain strong, but for dry vans, we are down by about 6 cents per mile over week. Reefers, we're down by about 3 cents per mile week over week. And flatbeds, we're only down by about 5 cents per mile week over week. Load to truck ratios for every respective are still pretty strong. Vans, we're sitting at about 10 loads to trucks. Reefers are sitting at 19, almost 20 loads to truck. And flatbeds, like I said, is 44. They're still they still have the ball in their court. Market signal capacity is returning, and national rates move lower, but every segment remains at least 43% above last year, which is a welcome sign. We still, compared to last year this time, we are sitting in really lush green territory.
We certainly are. Um, you know, if there's still we still have a capacity crunch, correct?
Absolutely.
Okay, if we have this shows how the trucker controls the market, not the broker. Because if the broker controlled the market, I would think that we would see something different. The trucker is the one that is willing to do it for cheaper.
Yeah, we are starting to see, anecdotally, I'll share my experience from last week.
I want to hear it.
We talked about, I mentioned that I was headed down to Florida on last week's show.
Right.
Got down to Florida, got unloaded, got a pretty good rate going down out of Lavergne, Tennessee. So from Lavergne, Tennessee, we went down to Royal Palm Beach, which is primarily the Miami market.
Right.
We got a pretty decent rate to go down. We took belt to ass coming out of there, though.
Yeah, of course. So you know what? Nothing has changed there. It's Florida. It's July. Florida is one of those areas where everything normally, even in good times, there's not a lot comes out of Florida, except there's a couple of blimps like Mother's Day for flowers, watermelon season, things like that.
Normally, what I'll try to do is when I go down to Florida, and this kind of, I said, well, maybe I need to wait and we'll try it again maybe a few months down the road. Right now, I'm kind of avoiding Florida at all costs unless it's getting a king's ransom to really go down there. Normally, my strategy is I'll go down. If I have to go into the Miami market, then I'll try to find something out of the Miami market that'll bring me up to the central Florida market, the Lakeland, Orlando, Kissimmee area, out of South Florida. And usually you can get a decent rate to bump up there. It'll at least cover your day's cost on average. There really wasn't much of that moving at the time when I was looking on the spot market. There really was not much of that at all moving. And then there were some lows moving out of the Jacksonville market, but of course that's now you're looking at from South Florida, you're looking at about a 300-mile deadhead.
Yeah.
That's not really appetizing. Ended up settling on, I found a load that was picking up out of it was about 45 miles away from where I delivered in Royal Palm Beach. It was coming back to Atlanta, which put me back in a good market so that I could reposition back to a good market, because Atlanta is really one of the best markets going
right now,
in the Southeast right now. But we ended up coming out of there. It would not have been bad if it were not a multi-day load. It ended up being a 3-day load, and it had 3 stops on it. So it was kind of a dog, but it kind of served its purpose, so to speak. But if I hadn't gotten a good amount to go down to Florida, I really would have suffered really badly if I would have just took what the broker was wanting to pay on the initial cost. So you got to make sure that you are vetting yourself and vetting your pricing accordingly. Um, but that was kind of how it was for me last week. This
You
week
know
I'm
what's
kind of
going on too, though, Rico, is the domiciled Florida carriers, the reefer carriers, when things are slow. I know a carrier down there. My daughter and I had dinner with him. Guy ran 750 trucks, pretty much dedicated to the cut flower industry. And what they were doing was when in between, when they had loads, they were bouncing around hauling soda pop from the Miami area up towards Tampa, Orlando, in through there. And that apparently that's very common for any of the carriers domiciled in Florida to do in between loads. So you're competing with all those guys too. And there's still a lot of carriers down in the South Florida area that are, they're there to haul flowers and other things.
absolutely, absolutely, and I didn't see many flowers moving. I'm in contact with a few of the flower guys down there in Florida, and I didn't even see much of those loads moving at all.
No, it's July. So there's nothing, there's really not a huge market in July. First of all, you got local flowers. If you drive along country road anywhere, pretty much in North America, you'll see fruit stands and stuff in the front of farm laneways, and quite often they'll have bouquets of flowers. So you're competing with the local flowers. The flower business. I come from the flower business way back, prior to being 21, and I can tell you that the flower business is highly seasonal.
Right, right. It definitely is, and so right now, like I said, South Georgia, and it's even moving up even a little bit further. I think we're starting to get into South Carolina now, as far as when you're talking about the watermelons and things of
Right.
that. I think it's as the time progresses on, it moves further and further up north the eastern seaboard there.
Yeah, and actually, it goes up to Indiana on the western side. Do you know that?
Yeah, yeah, I've seen that happen as well. I've seen that happen as well. So, and like you say, right now, just during the month of July, hopefully, we kind of maintain some of this momentum. Hopefully, we don't lose all of the steam out of ourselves. I've read a lot of different things on a couple of different threads from different brokerages and brokerage houses and different brokers on social media. They are really trying to push the rates back down. So, and that's just kind of, I don't know. I guess that's their regular method of operation.
Yeah, but they can't push. Yeah, here's how it works. They don't control the rates. The You guys that own the trucks control the rate.
But I
Don't
think that what happens though, Chuck, is that the brokers are much more adept at negotiating, and they're a lot more convincing. After you've done this for a little while, for the new person that's checking in, if all your data points are checking off, and everything is looking correct, and you look at everything as far as the load to truck ratio and the areas, because we have just as much information as brokers do now.
Yes,
And if all of the boxes are checked off, sometimes you might need to wait till later in the day for more pressure on that broker to move that load. Sometimes
100%.
you can't just accept it when you're. I know that a lot of times people, and I'm guilty of this. I like to try to see if I can pre-book, get my loads already booked out ahead of time, and that way I can kind of focus on the task at hand or whatever. Sometimes that's not necessarily the best way to operate, especially in the spot market,
It's not.
because they will take advantage. They will push and be like, well, I still, if you're booking out a day or two in advance, the broker will be like, well, I still got 2 days to try to get this load moved at this rate.
Exactly. So don't worry about your convenience. So here's something I want everybody to think about. Take a page out of and it's not always possible because I realize some of you need to reposition your truck. So you don't have, it's more about repositioning your truck back to the head hole. That is paramount. And that's a whole separate thing. You're
Right.
repositioning. You've got a commitment in North Carolina, let's say every Wednesday, you've got to be back, you've got to be, in your case, you've got to be in Atlanta in order to service your customer. So you know damn well if you're in Miami or you're in Nashville or wherever, you've got to get back to Atlanta to look after your business. Well, that's totally separate. But if you're not, if you can, what a lot of smart carriers will do, they hold off and they book their truck out the end of the day. And they've taken a page from the airline. So if you phone any airline you want, you say, I want to go from Atlanta to LA Christmas time. I want 2 tickets. You'll get it quite cheap. If I call the 23rd of December and I say I need 2 tickets from Atlanta to LA, I'm going to pay 5 times what you did because I waited.
And not only that, you got to be willing to call the broker's bluff. A lot of times, they do some serious bluffing. Yesterday, I was on a load negotiating with the broker, and I had my price that I wanted to have, and he had his price that he wanted to have, and so we were close. But then I told him I was sticking firm to mine. He was like, "Well, man, we've been on the phone, and I got another guy on the other line over here that's willing to do it for this price." I said, "Well, you better get off the phone with me. You better go."
Well, Rico, you know what I can tell you from years and years of experience sitting behind a broker's desk, that when we had our regulars on the phone calling in to take a load from Chicago back to Toronto or Toronto to LA, and they were a regular, we never, ever, ever negotiated the price. It was the same every week because and if they said to me, listen, we need an extra $100 this week because of fuel or because of what, it wasn't even a question.
That's the benefit of the relationship.
That's right. So if you really want to, bottom line, rather than all this extra work, go and set up some direct relationships with brokers. They're your sales department, and you won't have to negotiate every load. It's set it and forget it. Why do we make our lives so hard?
Well, and I'll speak to this, Chuck. That works when you're dealing with, I don't know, there's a new breed of broker that has come in, and there's a lot of the old guard where you can develop those relationships. It's tougher to do nowadays. Nowadays, they have been training. It seems like they have been really training the new crop of brokers that have come into the market to price above all. And that's kind of how we got into this whole conundrum of this whole thing of, driving prices down when we had when the capacity was outrageous and you could throw anything against the wall and carriers would accept it. But now that we've kind of been culling the herd and getting some of the bad actors out of the industry, I think that you're starting to see some brokers that are starting to value good carriers. But you still have those ones that you're dealing with that have been trained under this new regime of trying their very best to keep continuing to try to push for a race to the bottom when it comes to the race. And that's just something that I've experienced a lot over the past few couple of weeks. They don't even necessarily even have the authority to book the load unless they can book it at those low bottom rate prices. When I've held firm on my rate and the number that I had to get, of course they had to go, well, let me get approval. They had to actually go to the boss or to the actual broker. These were just representatives up underneath that broker that were working the phones. So that's why I say you have to make sure once you know that all of your numbers are in check and that you feel confident and solid in your research that you have done for the day, man, stick to your guns. know what your bottom dollar is, and know what your floor is, and what you're willing to walk away from, and what range you're willing to work within.
But and I'm not, I think everything you said is very true. But there are still a lot of brokers out there. Some are small, some are big, that do it the old-fashioned way. I think it's indicative. It's everybody's responsibility to look for those, but you can only find them if you're willing to commit to a lane.
Yep.
Because you've got to make their life easier too. And I don't think there's a good broker out there that if a carrier comes in and said, listen, what have you got? Let's work something out. Remember, they're trying to, with the way the law is reading now, they're looking for good, solid carriers. They can't sell from empty shelves.
Well, one thing that, and I'd be interested to get your take on this too, Chuck, because JB Hunt announced, they beat expectations. They are really cooking over there at JB Hunt. They really knocked all of their stuff out of the park when it comes to reporting for the stock market.
Right.
And one of the indicators is saying that a lot of shippers are now trying to insulate themselves from the Supreme Court ruling and everything, and they are going to the bigger enterprise carriers. They're putting much more freight with the much larger, bigger enterprise carrier, and so that's kind of cutting into the available freight for brokers.
Now, on the other hand, though, you're right, except that company, and JB Hunt is a perfect example. Unless something has changed there, they got away from open board a long time ago, and any of the one-offs, which are millions and millions of loads a year, go through their brokerage. So it may be worth starting a relationship with somebody at a company like JB Hunt's brokerage.
Yeah, they definitely
trouble. They want carriers that are going to do a good job for them and that are going to be legal. They don't want to get called 2 o'clock in the morning saying, "Well, you better pick up your load because the driver was busted because he doesn't speak English." They don't want you.
I think we might have a little bit of an audio issue there, Chuck.
No, you're sounding good here.
Okay, yeah, there you go. Yeah, so we're having some. I think that there's a shift that's coming in, and JB Hunt is definitely putting out there. I've been contacted with them for a lane from out to Louisiana and back to Atlanta.
Right.
That's not really an area that I service, but we're still talking. If they can make it a little bit more. If they can make it a little bit more worth my while, then that might be something that we might entertain.
Now, the person you're dealing with, is that at their Lowell, Arkansas office?
No, I think that this is the person based in Atlanta.
Okay, what I would do if it was me, I would phone that person and you want a meeting with them. And go and put on your sports jacket and your fancy shoes and go and bring them a cup of coffee or buy them lunch. And have a meeting, and I think not enough of that is being done now by the small carriers.
Yeah, I've got someone that I'm developing a relationship with, and that's one of the things on my bingo card is to take them out to dinner or to lunch one day.
That is the most important thing. You got to feed the gatekeeper.
Yeah,
feed your customer. Now, some of these large companies like JB Hunt may not allow you to even buy a cup of coffee for their people.
Right.
Other ones do allow it. The smaller brokers would certainly allow it. And this is your salesman. This is your, while you're driving, these guys are getting the customers. And I can tell you from my experience, you can't get customers yourself. So that customer is taking care of it. It's a good attitude. Set up.
Yeah, so right now, Chuck, with everything that's going on in the market, what are you suggesting? What do we're starting to see, like I say, there shouldn't be any panic. What do we just need to kind of hold steady? What advice would you give to our listeners out there that are listening, that are starting to see rates come down a little bit, fuel going up a little bit. What kind of advice would you leave us with for this
Well,
week?
your fuel is a wild card, okay? And again, as I said in the beginning of our conversation, we have to watch out for that because that's the thing that costs us a whole lot of profit. So my best advice to everybody is to not run much further than their fuel tank. And in this market, especially, unless you've got some sort of insulation, because if you've got a long trip and fuel is volatile, you could end up taking a haircut, and no broker or no carrier is going to cover that. It's going to cover the unknown at the time of dispatch when they're giving you that load. So I would pick those shorter lanes and definitely have point A to point B. You've got to stop running wild. We've all seen how volatile the stock market can be. But if we're going to play the stock market, let's play it in a controlled manner. So at least we're building up something. Everybody knows Rico goes from Atlanta to North Carolina, nowhere else, or wherever we go.
Absolutely. Well, with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to get ready to put this one, park it for another week. We definitely appreciate you guys' attention to the show. If you guys like, once again, would make sure that you like, share, and subscribe to the show. We would greatly appreciate you in helping us do so. Hopefully you found something educational, entertaining, or both. And with that being said, we want you guys to continue to stay safe out there, stay healthy, stay profitable most of all, and keep it in between the mustard and the mayonnaise.
Catch you on the flip-flop.
God bless you guys and good night. We'll talk at you guys same time, same place next week, God willing.
Have a great one.